My name is Lyle Schlegel. I grew up in South Central Pennsylvania, a town called Waynesboro, if that means anything to you. I started college at Eastern University in 2017, transferred in the fall of 2019, got to Lee University in the spring of 2020, just before COVID started, and then I graduated in 2022. Yeah, it's good. The years are already jumbling. Great sign. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Vocational Youth Ministry, along with a minor in writing. For the past 9-ish months, that is an introduction I've been giving in some form or another to the various families, fellows, partners, and speakers that we meet during the process of this program. I have been serving in the student ministry of Signal Mountain Presbyterian Church as their middle school resident. Thank you, John. In the fall of 2022, I was living with my older sister and her husband in Knoxville as they tried to get my life started. Because I graduated college, and college was a great time for me, growing personally, finding connections, relationships, but I didn't really do all that much to kind of get myself started professionally. I went to some job fairs, made some applications, but I did the summer mission trip, made applications, nothing really panned out. And so I'm in Knoxville doing work, eventually find a job at Target just to kind of get some money coming in. And I'll be honest, in short, Target was the thing I found before I had a really nice view of work. It was honestly a kind of phase I think I felt my heart harden a little bit, just in frustration at the everyday people. Where I'm like, oh, good. Yes, I'll just drag your cart out of this gravel patch because you didn't want to take it to the carousel a foot away from you. But I'll get into that later. But I'm trying to find out what to do, and I also had this view of I just wanted to be doing ministry. That's what I studied, that's what I felt called to. So I'm trying to figure out where to do that, and I apply to some churches, and when a lot of churches have this kind of feeling of not wanting to hire a stranger to oversee the discipleship of their flock, which is I get it, but it puts me in this weird position of okay, I guess you need to find a church, go to a church, and just cross fingers that someday a position opens up that I can really thrive in. But eventually I find a program called Knoxville Fellows, no affiliation with the Fellows Institute, just Knoxville Fellows. And I apply because it's a program of live in Knoxville, get a work placement, build skills. I'm like, cool, sounds awesome. I meet with the director and he's like, hey, fun fact, our entire internal structure is changing. We can't promise that we'll be doing this in the fall. But hey, here is the Fellows Institute, whom we have based a lot of our program off of. And I'm like, awesome. So I look it up and I apply for a couple programs, and I apply for Colorado Springs. So I'm like, hey, I did a mission trip there. If I'm gonna settle down somewhere, that'd be fun. I applied to Knoxville because I was like, I'm going to a church here, that'd be nice to continue that. And then I applied to Chattanooga. And I applied to Chattanooga because, well, I kind of knew it from being at Lee, and it also had an aquarium. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that the Tennessee Aquarium was 30% of the factor in applying to Chattanooga. But I've really grown to love the Chattanooga. Those magic tricks where they have the handkerchief, and then you pull the handkerchief, and there's another handkerchief, and you keep pulling until there's a 3-foot rope of handkerchiefs? Chattanooga is that handkerchief magic trick. I came here for an aquarium and some work, and I found so many more reasons to love it, I went to Lee for 2.5 years, and it's amazing to me that there's so much I just didn't know about the city. I didn't know that Needloves was a thing, which anyone who knows me now would be like, wow, this had to have always been in his life. He's always gushing about the pastries, or the soup with just unending bread in it. I discovered that Chattanooga has an incredible theater that gets actual shows on tour. Last winter I got to see Come From Away, my favorite musical ever, and then this summer I'm going to see To Kill a Mockingbird with my mom. I was introduced to the intense world of the Chattanooga Football Club, of which now I am a proud fan. And in my own workplace neighborhood area of Signal Mountain, I discovered the amazing grocery store / meeting place / venue that is Pruitt's Market. I've spent a lot of money at Pruitt. But even more than that, the people. I have been incredibly blessed and supported by the folks that call this area home. Almost every week of this Fellows experience, I, along with the others of my cohort, were invited into the homes of various friends and family of the program around the city to eat and hear stories, if we offered advice, like the value of committing to putting down roots in a place, or even the litany of stories showing how many paths we will take to get where they are now, or even the lessons in knowing when we need to take a step back and allow our loved ones to support us in our growth. And I'm incredibly thankful for the people I've been able to work with alongside at Single Mountain Presbyterian Church. This wasn't an environment where I showed up, did my work, and dipped. This was a space where I was loved and encouraged by and invested in by so many leaders of different ministries who saw my heart for God and students and were like, hey, we see your heart for this, we want to build you up for this. Be it in weekly check-ins or spontaneous lunch outings or traveling to various events, it was just a long period of being known and knowing others. And I'm also just thankful for the students I got to work with and even their families I got to know. Like, my second day of my residency was the first Wednesday night for Signal Mountain's youth ministry. And it was a lot. You know, first day on the job, I get here, I think I'm reorganizing Planning Center, which is a weird system, Planning Center devs, we got a lot to talk about. But then second day on the job, it's like Wednesday night, cool, set up some games, blow up some balloons, and then I'm just in a room with like 30 sixth grade boys, and we spend like 30 minutes trying to learn all their names. And I'm like, all right, this is what I'm doing. But it's been great. I think they've shown me a lot what it means to soften your heart. Like no matter how much I'm tired out or stressed in the night, it's always like, I love these kids and I'm coming back because I care about them. I want to see them grow. And no matter how stressed they make me, it's impossible to feel any like long-term ill will. It's like they're made in God's image and I'm just going to keep showing up and keep loving them. But everything here is amazing, but the place is only part of the Fellows experience. At heart, the Fellows cohort is about bringing together your faith and work, about learning and seeing how God can use us in a community. And I came into Fellows with a kind of unique standing of like, I know what I'm called to, I know what I want to do for work. But then the downside of that was that I had this almost like lesser view of work that wasn't vocational ministry. You know, I was at Target and I'm just doing this till I get something better. And there were days where I just felt super drained or just mad at the work I was doing. And even when I left and went to Chick-fil-A, which was a more fun environment, it was still just like, this is fine, but like it's not what I'm meant to do. It just felt like professional purgatory. Like I'm just here until something better comes along. And I think Fellows has been a lesson in learning that like I'm built for more than just the one thing. Like yes, student ministry is my calling. It's where I feel God can and will use me. But I think God has used Fellows to also remind me of the other unique ways he's built me, whether it's in my joy of cooking or sharing stories or joking. It's like there's so many avenues that he can use me that even if they aren't ministry at the moment, they are still good and valid. And it doesn't mean I'm abandoning my student ministry desires. It just means that until then, I understand that the work I do is just as valid and good. Any and all work I do is stewarding the garden that God has placed me in. And stewarding the garden also means learning to be a better gardener, or just learning what I can be better at. And in terms of looking towards the future, Fellows has shown me how I wish to grow. You know, earlier, at some point, I think back in October, November, we had a whole class on Enneagram. I think I was reminding them somewhere in like the 2 to 3 range, which basically means like, your needs are the most important thing to me. My needs, I'll get to those eventually. Like when I'm in a leadership position, I need to learn to delegate better because I'm just like, if I'm in this position, this is what I've been offered, I need to do this well. There's people here to help me, they'll figure it out, I'm just gonna do this work I can. And I know that that's not healthy. You know, when life gets busy or hectic, I tend to focus more on what I can do in a given situation and it will ultimately block God out of it. I'm just like, God, I'll get to you in a second, I just gotta do all this. And I just really don't like asking for help, especially when I'm struggling. I feel like I have to be the one to help and support others, not the other way around, especially if it's like my responsibility to do with things. It's like if I'm asking for help, I'm somehow messing up or like showing that I'm not good enough for this role. And I think also I just need to genuinely seek healing in the future. You know, I came to the Fellows year with some stuff I need to unpack, and I struggled to find time to do well. And I think that busyness kind of reminded me of that, like, I just put things to the side until it becomes an issue for me. And counseling is something that I know I need to look into, and I'm excited to look into, but it also scares me because I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of introspection, a lot of talking about myself, because I prefer to talk to other people and know them better. But I think it's something that I'm excited for and look forward to doing in the pursuit of loving others better and serving better. And I also desire to learn more. See, when I finished school, I was thinking of like the iceberg metaphor of like, cool, college is the entire underside of the iceberg. Now everything starts. I didn't feel all that inclined towards grad school or seminary because I'm like, I'm doing student ministry. It should be fine. I don't need a big fancy theology degree. But I think in my time at Single, I think I've been encouraged by various pastors and leadership of just, hey, is this something worth looking into, both to better sharpen myself as a ministry leader, as well as to just be challenged and seek better learning, and also just to know more peers in ministry. And I'm excited for that idea. I'm excited maybe even just go somewhere and study well. And I don't know where yet, what specifically I want to study, but as soon as I have like a steady job and income, I really want to seriously consider what that'll look like. In closing, I just want to share a quick Bible story, which feels right as vocational ministry placement, from Luke. About 8 days after Jesus said this, he took Peter and John and James with him and went up onto a mountain to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. 2 men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring to fulfillment at Jerusalem. Peter and his companions were very sleepy, but when they became fully awake, they saw this glory and the 2 men standing with him. As the men were leaving Jesus, Peter said to him, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up these 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." He did not know what he was saying. While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and covered them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son whom I have chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept this to themselves and did not tell anyone at that time what they had seen. So the Transfiguration, a lot of meat there you can't unpack. But the one thing I always like to look on is just that image of Peter waking up, being asleep, because the disciples are always falling asleep at big moments, because there's some sleepy boys. But he sees this meal. He sees Jesus, his teacher, clothed in brilliance, speaking with like Moses and Elijah, these 2 figureheads of what he's studied and learned. And he's like, hey, we should stay here and focus on this glorious thing. And then he kind of gets admonished for it. I think it's kind of applied to like, he kind of knows Jesus has been talking about, he's trying to like forestall that. And then God is like, hey, this is my son, trust him and move forward. And I think I take heart in this because Fellows and my time at Single Pres have been a literal mountaintop experience. And as much as I want to stay forever in this moment, I know that I can't stay forever. If I forever dwell on this and refuse to move on, I'll be doing a disservice to Fellows, to Signal, to all who have loved me and invested in me in the plans that God has laid out for me. As much as it scares me, I need to be open to the plans that God has laid out for me, whether that means I'm doing full-time ministry tomorrow or 3 years from now, whether that means I spend the next 10 years in Chattanooga or in 2 years he calls me away somewhere else. I need to be ready to leave the mountain and trust God with my story.